Okay, we are underway. Hey guys, what is going on, and welcome to episode 5 of the Fortem Training Podcast with me, head coach and owner, Kieran Douglas Jones. 5 episodes in already. Going pretty well, I think, or at least I think it's going well. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. This one's actually been recorded, today is the 18th. The Europe Regionals start today. The Europe Regionals, just been watching a little bit of that this morning, 333. Not the most exciting event to watch in the world, but nevertheless, good test of aerobic capacity, I guess, is the point of that one. But yeah, episode 5. Today's episode, we are talking all things supplements. So this sort of stemmed from a client interaction and a little bit of sort of a client question that we had this week, and the question itself was sort of supplements. What do I need? Do I need them? And that was pretty much it. That was the extent of the question, was supplements. Do I need them? Do I want them? Do I need to take them to make progress? And then the sort of third or fourth part to that question was also, do they work? And my answer to that is in terms of do they work, is yes. I think for the most part, all supplements do work, and it's more of a question of not do they work, but how much do they work. It's a question of worth versus over. Rather, it's a question of, are they worth it rather than do they work. So yeah, first part, we're going to talk through a little bit on supplements, sort of different things, whether it is protein powders, stimulants, pre-workouts, vitamins, like vitamin D, other things, iron, omega-3. So I'm just, for the purpose of for the benefit of just the listeners and those of you that aren't watching on YouTube, just got some notes in front of me, little preparation for this episode. A lot of research is coming up in the second part. So yeah, I spent a good couple of hours trawling through some stuff on that that I will talk about in the second part. So yeah, first part, we're going to talk through supplements and my sort of thoughts on supplements and work versus worth and all that stuff. Then take a quick break. We'll come back in part 2, and I will go through what I take, what my current supplement situation looks like, why I take it, and sort of the benefits and some of the research behind each of those. So yeah, to get us going, supplements, work versus worth. And I think that was the real answer for me, was yes, for the most part there is research to support all supplements and that they do work, but then when you look at things like protein powders, it's not a question of do they work. Like, protein powder is a protein powder. We know what protein is, so it's not a question of does it work. It's more of a question. The question was more probably aligned to things like, do I need like vitamin D, omega-3s, BCAAs, those sorts of things. And I think for the most part there is research, particularly in the vitamin D. I will talk about that a little bit in the second part, but I think there is research to back up pretty much all supplements for the most part, and there's going to be, you'll be able to find research that supports for mostly all supplements, but there is sort of a trade-off of, if you've got plenty of money and you've got loads of money to throw at supplements, and you can take in all the supplements on the earth, and you want to throw money at it and hope for the best, then they will all work, and all those little 0.5%, 1% will add up to somewhat of a big change, although that could well also be to the detriment of your health, because shoveling supplements down your throat is not the best way to go about keeping yourself healthy. So yeah, it was less of a question of do they work, more of are they worth it for this particular client. Then we went on to explain sort of there are supplements, like particularly things like BCAAs, in the bodybuilding world, less so in the CrossFit world, although there is still some of it around. In the bodybuilding world, BCAAs are a big supplement for a lot of people, and it is a religious thing, and they take very, very seriously. And that is probably one of the best examples of, yes, they work, but are they worth it? you could be getting that sort of that 0.5%, that 1% difference. But when you're training for health and fitness, those 0.5% and those 1% difference, you've really got to weigh up. Is that firstly worth the money to spend on? Because supplements can get expensive when you start adding up with this and that, and 3 of these a day, and a scoop of this and a scoop of that. It can sort of really add up very quickly in terms of a monthly cost. But aside from that is the time as well. I know supplements can be convenient, particularly protein powders can be very, very convenient, and they're a good option to boost up your protein levels. I'll get onto that a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, it is a question of are they worth it for someone that is just training for sort of health and fitness? For someone that's just training for health and fitness, those sort of 0.5%, those 1%, do they really matter? They're probably not the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak, in terms of trying to make progress, whether it is to look better, lose a bit of weight, put on some muscle, add 20 kilos your back squat, whatever it is you want to do, training for health and fitness, just staying healthy. What we're really trying to do when we are coaching those kinds of clients is make sure we pick off the lowest hanging fruit. So dialing in your nutrition, making sure you get enough protein, make sure you're eating the right amount, you're not overeating, you're not undereating, got your training schedule looks right, you make all the sessions, you do all the sessions, you don't skip sessions, reducing sugar intake, processed foods, removing processed foods. Supplements is very, very, very far down the list when you're looking to make changes for someone that is just training for health and fitness. And when you are, those of you that are home that perhaps don't have a coach, those of you that are, you sort of you're running your own ship, so to speak, big fan. If you are running your own ship, programming your own training, doing all your own nutrition, good on you. It is a tough thing to do. And definitely programming for yourself is a very tough thing to do, because if you program in advance and you get to the session and you go, I don't really fancy doing that, change the session. But if you can program and stick to it and do it yourself, good on you. Good on you. I know what it's like to have to program for yourself. But yeah, getting a bit off track. I've completely lost where I was on that. Yeah, and coming back to the 1% and the 0.5%, those, when you look at then compare someone training for health and fitness to a professional athlete, someone that is perhaps training for, whether it is the CrossFit Games, whether it is going to the Olympics, whether it's professional sport in whatever capacity, those 0.5% and those 1%, those tiny incremental gains for those are very much the difference between winning and losing, compared to someone who is training for just health and fitness to lose a little bit of weight. Those 0.5% and those 1%, although if they do all add up to a big change, but those 0.5%, those 1% in the form of supplements, whether it is the BCAAs, whether it is whatever it is, not to bash BCAAs or anything, but they just seem to be the most common one that gets some bad rap from many people. Those aren't the lowest hanging fruit in terms of what we can change and what we can adapt to help you lose that weight, to help you pack on some muscle, to help you add a couple of kilos to your lifts. Those are not the lowest hanging fruit. So those sort of 0.5% and those 1% you've got to weigh up, are they worth it, and are they worth your money? That's probably the biggest thing. Like I said just now, are they worth your money to throw money at it all the time for every month? Or are you better off just changing on your nutrition, making sure you eat a wider variety of protein, a wider variety of meat, whatever it is, whether you eat more veg, whatever. There are many, many other things that you can do instead of resorting to supplements for that short, quick fix. So yeah, that was sort of my answer to: do they work? Are they worth it? Do I need them? With that in particular, with that client. So when you look at then supplements, you look at things like stimulants. People use pre-workouts before training. Pre-workouts, they work. I've used pre-workouts extensively. I play on a personal level. I play semi-pro rugby, and pre-workouts in the first couple of years that I came out of age grade rugby into semi-pro stuff, pre-workouts really dialed your focus in. They really did help you dial your focus in, got you pumped to go out on the pitch and to really get yourself like stuck into that zone. But I think now, after playing a couple of seasons, this year in particular, I haven't used them at all. We just come to the end of this particular season, and I have not used a pre-workout at all this season in any capacity. Any pre-workout in terms of a supplemented pre-workout, then something that I completely do not take anymore. I think for me it was I sort of got to the point where I didn't need it. I didn't need to get pumped up and didn't need to get my sort of the focus on into the game to be able to get involved and whatever. I think as you play more and you become more experienced, I think you rely on you think less about, oh, this is going to help me, and more about your ability and trust in your ability to be able to do whatever you need to do. But then comparing sort of pre-workouts to something I do now drink a lot of, and it can be seen as sort of a stimulant, and very often a lot of people use it as a pre-workout, and it's coffee. There's nothing better than a strong coffee to get you fueled and get you prepared for a workout. And coffee is a natural source. None of that, you're not thumping sugar from sucralose from a pre-workout, some blueberry raspberry crap. You're not shoveling that down your throat and getting the buzz and getting that shit, or getting the tingles from the beta-alanine or whatever. Coffee, just for me now, does just as good a job as being sort of acting as a sort of stimulant. Coffee is a stimulant for the most part, and coffee is a great alternative to a pre-workout, and it's a much more natural source, a much, for want of a better word, healthier source than thumping sort of a pre-workout supplement that can be, not always is, can be piled full of crap, sort of artificial crap in there, and thumping that down your throat. So I think that's a really good change that you can make for those of you that do feel you still need a pre-workout to sort of get yourself going for it. Particularly CrossFit is something that it's seen a lot less, although there are some of the professional athletes you do take pre-workouts before certain events, whether if it is like a short and sharp event, just thump down a pre-workout, get yourself going for it. But yeah, for me, it is coffee every single day of the week. Moving on, protein powders. So I'm just going to talk through a couple more sort of vague groups, what I would call, of supplements. So from next one, protein powder. Protein powder is a lot of people are well versed in the benefits of a protein powder. We all know that they work. With protein powders, it's not very much a question of does it work, because we all know, like I said, we all know protein, and if you are just trying to boost your protein intake, protein powder, great way to do it. Awesome way to do it. But the biggest thing when you look at when getting a protein powder and what protein powder to use is looking at the quality and the amino acid profile within the protein powder. Off the top of my head, I don't know if it's quite correct, 8 amino acids, essential amino acids. If that is wrong, those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see something flash up on the screen. But off the top of my head, 8 essential amino acids, which means they cannot be made inside of the body. They have to be consumed through diet. So a good quality protein powder is going to have 8 of those, preferably 8 of those essential amino acids in, so that you are getting those. You definitely know that you are getting those from your nutrition if you are using a protein powder on a daily basis. A second sort of marker for whether you are using a good protein powder is, does it cause bloating? A lot of protein powders, lower quality. Some good protein powders still do the same thing, but they can cause bloating. So you drink it and you feel sort of really full, and you feel that bloat in your stomach. That is very often the sign of a not too great protein powder, or that there is just something in it that is causing a problem for you individually or for you specifically. I can't say that I have ever used a protein powder that has specifically caused any bloating. Not something that I have. Not something that I've experienced. But in terms of my protein powder usage, I don't necessarily take them anymore. It's not something I use daily, and that's something that you should take into account as well. Is not using it, relying on protein powders to get your protein is not an ideal. It's not an ideal place to be in terms of your nutrition. What you should be doing is aiming to eat a wider variety of whole protein sources, whether it is turkey, chicken, lamb, beef, pork, whatever it is. Trying to eat many different protein sources and getting the vast majority of your protein from wholesome meat sources. Then working around that, if you do find that you can't quite reach your protein goal for the day and you just need that protein powder just to top it up, that is a good way to use protein powders. Excuse me. But relying on a protein powder to get the vast majority of your protein on a daily basis is not a good place to be in. And also, along with that and along with the protein intake, the post-exercise window. A lot has been made of the sort of the post-exercise window where you can shovel whatever you want down your face to refuel and replenish your protein and glycogen sources. That there is more made of that than it is worth. Again, that is something that, like, if I miss my protein after 10 minutes after my workout, I'm going to miss the anabolic window and all that shit. That is sort of, again, that's a question of worth. Like, you could get that little 0.5%, that little 1% extra from making sure that you get your protein in sort of like half an hour, up to an hour after your workout. But it really is a question of worth. That, again, that's not the lowest hanging fruit, and that is not what is preventing you, for the most part, it's not what is preventing you it's not what's preventing you sort of build more muscle, and that isn't what is holding you back from making those gains. So yeah, and then finally moving on to things like vitamins and minerals. Like, a multivitamin is something that a lot of people in the past have taken, and it's something that's been a big part of daily routine, and something that I have taken quite frequently over the last sort of 8 to 10 months. But again, with a multivitamin, it is a question of quality. A lot of you, if you take artificial multivitamins, you'll notice if you take a multivitamin and your pee is luminous yellow or luminous green, whatever it is, that is a multivitamin that is not being absorbed by your body. You're peeing it straight out. So, something to look for if you are taking a multivitamin is to, firstly, if you are peeing luminous green or yellow after you take it, then you probably should look at changing to a more naturally sourced vitamin or naturally sourced multivitamin. If you are peeing it all out, your body cannot digest. That is essentially why it is being peed out. So yeah, looking for a multivitamin that comes from that is filled with natural sources of each of the vitamins within it is sort of top of your list. If you are already taking a multivitamin, that's something that you probably want to change. And yeah, that closes us off for part 1 of this episode. There's a lot to talk about. Supplements is a big old topic. There's a lot of contention in supplements, many different views, lots of research, which talk a little bit more about some research in the second part, but I'm going to take a quick break and I'll come back with what I take, why, and some of the research behind all that. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really do appreciate your time. So as a thank you for tuning in, we're offering you 1 month of fully individualized custom programming with full access to myself as your head coach, along with access to a Fitbot account and full nutrition guidance as each of our individual clients gets. So to get involved, fire us an email at info@fortemtraining.com. Include your name and what episode you saw this advert on, and I'll get right back at you to get you set up with your Fitbot account and to get you going on your first month of free programming. Okay, we are ready to go. Welcome back, part 2, back up and running. Part 2 of episode 5 of the Fortem Training podcast. Today's topic, supplements. Go through the first part, talk a little bit about my thoughts on supplements, work versus worth. Are they worth it? Do they work? Question is yes, they do work. Are they worth it? Depends on your situation. But yeah, this part we're going to talk a little bit about what I take, supplements that I take, what I take, and why. So I've got a super short list. My list is very short. 3 supplements that I take. 1, Ashwagandha. Second one, vitamin D. I take those 2 every single day. And then one that I also use, L-Tryptophan. I also use L-Tryptophan, not religiously. I don't use that every single day. Something I did use every single day for a short period to test out. Found that it worked, and then necessarily didn't need it quite so much, and just now, every now and again, when I feel that I need it, I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to it. But to get us going, talk a little bit about Ashwagandha. I'll talk about each of them individually, a little bit on the research, and then a little bit about why I take it, and then a little bit on the research and those kinds of things. So the first one for me, take it every single day, Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb that is it's very similar to, those of you that know, it's very similar to ginseng. It's quite similar to that, and the reason I started taking it, the reason I started was because it was to do with my sleep. I was having trouble sleeping, and this will lead on to when I talk about a tryptophan, and it'll all come in together. But yeah, I started taking it because I was struggling to sleep, and I was looking around and seeing what things might well help with sleep. Ashwagandha, research shows that apologies, I'm looking a little bit at my notes. There's a lot of research that I had to dig through, and I did obviously dig through it at the time when I started taking it, but just reminding myself. So yeah, Ashwagandha, there's research to show that it reduces cortisol changes in the adrenal gland. So, and those of you that understand cortisol and those sorts of things, high levels of cortisol, stress, do affect your sleep. And I have found since I started taking the ashwagandha, I do feel substantially less stressed. I have become more recently, I'm more in tune with myself, and I can really feel the difference. A lot of people, you take supplements, you take different things like that, and you don't necessarily feel much of a change. But for me, when I do take something new, like ashwagandha, like tryptophan, I can definitely feel the difference. I feel as though I'm more in tune and able to tell that there is a difference with certain things and there isn't a difference with others. But yeah, that was the main reason why I started taking the ashwagandha. It was because I was having trouble sleeping, and it wasn't necessarily like insomnia or anything like that, or like I wasn't sleeping at all. It was just in terms of my sleep hygiene wasn't particularly good. So I was having trouble getting to sleep, and that was for the most part what the issue was. Once I was asleep, getting pretty solid sleep, it was just getting to sleep. And I think it was a culmination of being sat up, looking at my phone, scrolling through Instagram, answering emails, replying to messages on Instagram, finishing off things on finishing off some editing. Always every night was doing something like that pretty late on into the night, like 9, 10, 11 p.m, maybe even later. Then obviously trying then to get to sleep after sitting there for a couple of hours before you go to bed, looking at that screen, all that blue light hitting the receptors in your eyes, fires up your brain, tells you it's time to stay awake. It's difficult to then go to sleep. So yeah, my sleep hygiene wasn't particularly good. In fact, it wasn't very good at all. Like some nights I'd be up until 2 a.m, either doing work or something, and then go to sleep and then wake up at like 8. 6 hours isn't vastly not enough sleep, particularly when you are doing training daily, sometimes 2 days. So sleep then becomes particularly when you start doing 2 days, sleep becomes a it's a non-negotiable anyway. But if you then do not sleep and do 2 a days, you are running yourself into the ground. Don't do it. It's awful. It's terrible. Don't do it. Sleep. Just go to sleep. So yeah, I tidied up all my sleep hygiene as a whole. I tidied it all up. So now screens go off latest 9 at the latest 9 p.m. and then by 10:30 I'm going to sleep. So I take that time, the time between 9 and 10. I either read, I will listen to something more recently, audiobooks. I will listen to audiobooks. I will like dig through a chapter and just sit there in the dark. I will sit there in the dark, in bed, headphones in, and just zone out and listen to the audiobook. That definitely helps. That helps massively. Guided meditation is something that I've started doing a couple of times. Brain FM, those of you that struggle to sleep, Brain FM is a really, really good thing. Take a look. It's sort of music. There is a sleep. There is also a focus on there. Go and check it out. You'll be able to find out more than what I can tell you here. But yeah, go and check out brain.fm and you read up on that. It's really, really good. But anyway, coming back to the ashwagandha, I started taking it because I was struggling with sleep. It is also anti-inflammatory. Helps against, research shows that it is anti-inflammatory, helps against things like arthritis, osteoarthritis. It also mimics GABA or GABA, whatever you want to call it, which is a neurotransmitter in the CNS, the central nervous system. So it mimics what GABA does, and what that does escapes me at the moment, so I apologize for that. It also, research has shown, there's been quite a bit of research from what I've seen and what I've looked through. There's quite a bit of research on it having an impact on neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and helping with things like that. But those were sort of other things that the research showed as I was having a look through, so I thought it might be relevant. Yeah, also, last thing, cognition. Helps with cognition, helps with brain function. How much of that, I do not know. The research seems kind of vague on that aspect, but there is some research which cites that it does aid in cognition and brain function, but that isn't the primary reason why I use it. But yeah, for me, the biggest thing was the reduction of cortisol levels and trying to bring cortisol levels down and seeing if that had an effect on my sleep, in line with obviously just dialing in my sleep hygiene, getting to bed earlier, and all those things. But I've definitely found a difference, that it does not only help with the cortisol levels in terms of sleep, but it helps me with cortisol levels in terms of day to day. I feel far more relaxed, far less stressed. Not that I have too many things to be stressed about, although there's a lot to do on a day to day, but I love what I do. It's always good fun. Never too stressed. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the ashwagandha. As I take vitamin D daily, I will do that next. The vitamin D, there's a lot of research on vitamin D in the elderly, because vitamin D is responsible for the absorption of calcium in the bones, to the bones, for bone growth and so bone strength. So there's a lot of research in how vitamin D can help help the elderly with sort of bone strength, and because we tend, as we get older, bones become more brittle, more likely, more susceptible to breaks and those kinds of things. Yeah, it also shown to reduce illnesses and increase immune strength. Vitamin D from the sun. So we live in the UK, not much sun today. Actually, though, you can see behind me there is quite a bit of sun. So that theory goes out the window today. Yeah, we're outside. I'm under an umbrella just because it's pretty warm in the sun, and for recording this makes it a little bit easier with the lighting, because there's a lot of clouds passing over in front of the sun. But yeah, so the research, and then further on from the research, we do get vitamin D from the sun. The upper limit or recommendation of supplemented vitamin D is sort of somewhere around 5,000 IU is the upper limit. But in terms of getting how much you get from the sun, from what I can gather from the research, fair-skinned, someone of fair skin, sort of, I don't know, very lightly skinned, milk bottle, some may say, 10 minutes of sun, 10 minutes of sitting in the sun like we have today, some fairly strong, pretty decent sunlight, will give your body about 10,000 IU international units of vitamin D. So yeah, the reason I supplement with vitamin D, we live in the UK, there's a lot of rain, not often a lot of sun. Most of the year is overcast or raining. So yeah, vitamin D is an obvious choice. The only place we can get it is from the sun. There is no sun, so the obvious choice is to supplement it. The last one, L-Tryptophan, is an amino acid. I supplement it, again, similar to the ashwagandha. It all tied in with my sleep. So I did a lot of research on L-Tryptophan and sort of why it is a good option for sleep. And I looked at things like melatonin as well. Sort of wasn't convinced by it all. I probably need to do some more research because melatonin, obviously, those of you that know your stuff on your sleep, melatonin is responsible for helping you go to sleep. So that sort of stuff. My sleep, I didn't necessarily have trouble while sleeping. It was getting to sleep was the issue, and I sort of had trouble getting to sleep. And I know a lot of that was down to my sleep hygiene and sort of going to bed late, sitting up in front of the screen. But I did do, I have sort of, in the past couple of months while I've been taking this, and I have dialed in my sleep hygiene, I have sort of tested it and tested without the L-Tryptophan before going to bed, and I've definitely found that it does help hugely with getting to sleep, and that sort of ties in with the research that I sort of looked up a little bit more earlier, went a little bit further in depth with sort of the dosages and whatever. And the research shows that even down to some research done on some mild insomniacs, which they classed a mild insomniac as someone with 30 minutes of sleep latency. So it takes 30 minutes for you to fall asleep. And for the purpose of that research, those were classed as mild insomniacs. And they found that even down to a quarter of a gram supplemented L-Tryptophan reduced sleep latency, so reduced the time that it took for you to get to sleep. So I think definitely in line with my own experiments, it does definitely reduce sleep latency and helps me get to sleep much, much quicker. But then there is other research that does suggest that you need at least 1 gram supplemented for it to really affect your sleep latency and to bring the reduce sleep latency and help you get to sleep quicker. Generally, on someone with good nutrition, you will consume sort of 1.5 to 2 grams ish of L-Tryptophan on a daily basis. But yeah, some research says there's research that was tested on quarter of a gram, half a gram, 3/4 and 1 gram supplemented per night, and even down to the group that took 1/4 of a gram. There was a reduction in sleep latency, so they got to sleep much, much quicker, which was exactly what I wanted. So from the research I did, L-Tryptophan, top of the list for me. Then a little bit further into research, there was a little bit of contention on whether it sort of has an effect on REM sleep, your rapid eye movement sleep, which is stage 4 sleep. Some studies showed that it did also, as well as having an effect on sleep latency, it also had an effect on increasing your time spent in REM sleep. There was some contention in a couple of different studies, but each of them collectively there was contention with that. Although collectively all research agreed that it did reduce latency, so helped you get to sleep quicker, which for me, perfect. Super, super happy with that, because I've definitely found that with L-Tryptophan, it does help me get to sleep a lot quicker. So if there is anyone that does struggle with getting to sleep, I would highly suggest trying to dial in your sleep hygiene, turn off any screens before you go to sleep. Get to sleep a little bit earlier. If you're going to sleep like 12, 1 a.m, it's not good. It's really not good. The best time, or your most anabolic window, or the best sleep window, is between 10 a.m 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. There is a lot more research out there on that. Do go find out more. I don't know too much about that off the top of my head. I will have to do more research on it. But yeah, just carrying on with L-Tryptophan. It is also a precursor to serotonin. Serotonin is responsible for your mood and cognition. So those of you that also suffer with being in bad moods, L-Tryptophan could well be a good answer. Yeah. Serotonin is one of 4 neurotransmitters that is responsible for your mood, so it's not necessarily all about the L-Tryptophan and serotonin. There are 3 other neurotransmitters, but yeah, a lack. Then also, I really dug into some of the research, and there was some more research that showed that a lack of serotonin was linked to depression, which, as you can imagine, L-Tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin. Serotonin is responsible for mood. A lack of serotonin means low mood, depression, those kinds of things. But yeah, it's all super interesting when you really dig in to all the research on the supplements. Like I said, I did a lot of research when I decided to go with the ashwagandha and with the L-Tryptophan, just so to remind myself a little bit on some of the other stuff that I looked at it for. But yeah, that is it. That is what I take. Like I said, I take the ashwagandha and the vitamin D religiously, pretty much every day, every single day, unless I forget. Always happens. It happens now and again. But yeah, religiously for me, every single day, I will take those. The L-Tryptophan, I take it now and again. If I have like a night where I struggled to sleep or struggled to get to sleep, the next night I will take it, and I will do so for like a couple of nights, then sort of remove it again as I get back into my sort of my sleep routine and my sleep hygiene sort of dials back in. I will then sort of phase it out. But that's something that I'm sort of still trialing and erroring with, still giving it a try, finding that it works when I do take it, finding that some nights I don't feel a difference if I don't take it. So yeah, still working on it with that. But that is it for episode 5 of the Fortem Training Podcast. Supplements covered fairly extensively. I'm sure we'll get some guests on that will be able to cover some things in much more depth, which I'm certainly hoping will happen over the next couple of episodes. So yeah, that is it. Episode 5 done. Supplements well and truly covered. Like I said, we'll have a couple more guests coming on in the next couple of episodes or very soon in the future, although the next few are likely to be me. I will answer a couple more questions that we got through from Instagram. If you do have any questions you would like answered, fire them through at fortem.training on Instagram, slide in our DMs, or send us an email on info@fortemtraining.com, or fire them through to myself over on Instagram at Kieran Douglas Jones, and we will get them answered right here on the podcast. Thank you for listening. See you again. Those of you on YouTube, see you again in the next episode. Those of you that are listening, you will hear my voice again in episode 6. Thanks for listening.